Now we turn to our final speaker of the evening, a formidable leader in her own right with a special connection to this organization. Susan Eisenhower is a distinguished national security policy expert, a noted author and speaker, sought-after advisor to governments and major corporations. She's also a dear friend, a trustee, and a supporter of Eisenhower Fellowships. Susan is CEO of the Eisenhower Group, a Washington-based consulting company that provides strategic counsel on business development, public affairs, and communication projects to multinational companies in the United States, China, Russia, Central Asia, and Western Europe. She's also Chairman Emeritus of the Eisenhower Institute at Gettysburg College, where she teaches strategy and leadership. Susan co-founded and served as president of the Eisenhower World Affairs Institute. She co-chaired the groundbreaking Journey in Open Diplomacy Conference in the USSR in 1986, the first open policy debate in the history of the Soviet Union. Televised live across the country, this unprecedented week-long conference gave ordinary Soviet citizens a glimpse of what open policy discourse looked like. During the next decade, she carved out an expertise in space and nuclear security, becoming one of only a handful of experts to visit Russia's top-secret nuclear weapons installations for the Department of Energy. She also visited nuclear reactors in the former Soviet Union and other facilities where Russia secures its nuclear materials. In the 1980s, Susan brought together the initial team of U.S. and Russian aerospace engineers for the first cooperative effort to build the International Space Station. She later chronicled these groundbreaking events in her 2004 book, Partners in Space, U.S.-Russian Cooperation After the Cold War, and how amazing that title sounds now. For 8 years, Susan served as a member of the NASA Advisory Council and in 2001 on NASA's International Space Station Management and Cost Evaluation Task Force. A former journalist and public relations executive at Burson-Marsteller, Susan has testified before Congress, served 3 terms on the National Academy of Sciences Standing Committee on International Security and Arms Control, and has been a member of many government task forces on energy security issues, including the Blue Ribbon Commission on America's Nuclear Future. A prolific writer, she's written hundreds of op-eds and commentaries, 2 highly acclaimed books about her family, including How Ike Led, The Principles Behind Eisenhower's Biggest Decisions, published in 2020. The granddaughter of our namesake, President Dwight David Eisenhower, whom she knew well and remembers lovingly, Susan is a dedicated member of the Board of Trustees of Eisenhower Fellowships, and it's an organization close to her heart. In 2018, Susan and her brother David were awarded the Dwight D. Eisenhower Medal for Leadership and Service, an honor they received proudly. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podium Susan Eisenhower.
I'm sorry you had to sit through that whole thing. Well, it's such a great honor to be the final speaker. I have to say, if it was a hard act to follow Ken Burns, it's a very hard act to stand here before you get your dessert. So I'll try and be brief, but I have to tell you that I really felt my grandfather's presence here tonight. I really did. He was evoked so many times. In a way, I'm stunned by that because he was born in 1890. He's over, I can't do my math fast enough. I was just thinking about that, but you know, he was born 136 years ago. Just imagine that. And yet we're still talking about him today. I had a completely different set of remarks prepared, but I'm now going to wing it because I'd like to make some observations about this evening. I think the spirit in this room has been absolutely remarkable, and I'm so honored to be here to see a distinguished fellow recognized, Claire Marie Deguay, My friend, if I may call you that, Ken Burns, we have had outings at the Gettysburg Film Festival on a number of occasions. But what an extraordinary career you've had, and what a contribution you've made to our cultural as well as our educational lives in America. But let me just go back to my grandfather for a minute, because I think he would love the fact that two artists were given these awards tonight. He would love that. You know, I don't know if you know that he was persuaded to take up painting. And a lot of people don't know this, but he painted avidly, of course, making cracks and jokes about the quality of his artwork, but actually, please Google Eisenhower's portrait of Winston Churchill, and you will be astonished. He put his heart and soul into that because it helped his brain rest. And he felt that was really important for making good decisions, is to go into the artistic world for a while. He used to say to his secretary, "How many shades of green do you see?" as he looked out over the White House lawn, which was kind of a metaphor for saying how many different, what is the nuance of the issues we're working on today? And sometimes after making a decision, he'd go up from the Oval Office, or I should say while he was preparing to make a decision, he'd go up to from the Oval Office to his little painting room, which was just to the right of the family elevator at the White House, and sit in that studio and paint. And then he'd come down and make a decision, but he never made a decision in a noisy room. Let me say that one of the things I also loved about this evening is I kept hearing people being referred to as a member of the Eisenhower family. Boy, I like that a lot. I think we went from a rather small group to now a very large group indeed, and I must say, welcome to your own family that bears the name Eisenhower, but also to mine. I really can't tell you how much this program means to me, and so I'm just going to think of you as family members from now on. Let me say that there were also themes tonight that I thought were deeply moving, and that is the notion of relationships. It wasn't said directly, but we had so many wonderful presentations of people talking about the other fellows they'd met, and I heard wonderful stories this evening about how one Eisenhower fellow helped another with business arrangements, and the kinds of connections that have gone on over this period of time is truly extraordinary. I saw my grandfather develop relationships across the international scene. Do you know that the only person who ever slept overnight in the Eisenhower farm in a tiny bedroom, actually he was sleeping in the room my sister and I shared, was Prime Minister Nehru of India. He spent 2 nights there while Eisenhower gave him the family treatment. Yeah, and I think it made a very big difference because he wanted to know the man. It would have been easy enough to send cables back and forth. It would have been easy enough to send emissaries. But he did that, and many people came to the Eisenhower farm, including Winston Churchill, Charles de Gaulle, Konrad Adenauer, the first chancellor after World War II, the president of Mexico, Mateo. The list goes on and on and on. He wasn't having house parties out there for the fun of it. He was bonding and creating relationships with the people he would have to deal with, including, by the way, Nikita Khrushchev. So let me just say that in 1953, a group of Philadelphia businessmen decided to give Dwight Eisenhower the Eisenhower it was called the Eisenhower Exchange Fellowships, as a gift. I can think of nothing more appropriate. I can think of nothing more appropriate than this wonderful institution being in Philadelphia, where there are still members of the Whitlock family and the McCabe family on this board, that this history goes back, and it's meaningful, and it is deeply moving for my family. Of all the things they could have given Dwight Eisenhower was an institutional way to create relationships that would matter for the long haul. So let me say that this has been a wonderful evening for me. It has rekindled, redoubled re-tripled all of my enthusiasm for this program. I regard it as one of my favorite things to do, to meet with all of you fellows who can make it to my office in Washington, D.C. And so I wish you all the very, very best. At the Eisenhower Fellowships, we say that our mission is to bring international leaders in direct dialogue, to convert, get this, ignorance into understanding. That's what Dwight Eisenhower was doing on the porch when he subjected Nikita Khrushchev to the grandchildren strategy. He found common ground, and it was that common ground that averted a nuclear showdown over Berlin. The common ground that you've made here today has blossomed into more than just common ground. It's blossomed into trusted relationships, trusted friendships, and probably trusted partnerships. Today, this program is absolutely crucial. Let me just end on that note. Absolutely crucial. I think it was a wonderful idea in 1953. I think it's absolutely crucial right now. We have leaders all over the world who are trying to make each of us feel like we're all alone, that we don't have any friends, that everybody's out to get us, everybody, is at odds with each other. No, that's not the case, and you know that now from this fellowship. Let's use what we've created here and go back and make the difference. Make the difference when the opening comes, to change the way the world talks to each other, to change the trajectory of our future. And what you learn through this process is that AI will never be able to replicate the experience you've had today. Thank you.